What is discovery mode? Discovery mode is how two people can stay in what feels like a honeymoon phase for as long as possible, for as long as they want, and for as long as they continue to try. Now, discovery mode can be for those in monogamous relationships. It can be for those of you in polyamorous or open or monogamish relationships. Discovery mode can be practiced by those who are single and dating, or those people who don't even want to date. Stay in discovery mode with yourself. The number one way to stay in discovery mode, or maybe not the number one way, there's no hierarchy here, but let's say the first way that I'm going to share with you is to have goals together. Okay. Now, I mentioned this in episode 18, where a lot of times people will, look for the one, they'll find their person. They've dated a slew of maybe terrible people, or maybe some not so terrible people, right? Trying out their relationship styles and like seeing what fits and what doesn't fit. And I know friends all over the spectrum, some who are dating and having a terrible time, and some who are realizing that each person gets them closer to their best match. Whatever your case is, a lot of times you find this person and maybe you get married or you have some kind of commitment, and then you rest because you're like, I found the one. I did it. It's like this dating marathon is over and you rest. And then what happens? If you don't have something to work towards, you can get complacent. Things can get stale. And so I talked about this briefly in the previous episode, but what I didn't talk about was how to combat that. What do you do if you're feeling like that's happening in your relationship? And if you're not there yet, what's a great way to circumvent that happening, right? How can you know what to put in place and what to practice before it even happens? And so, working towards common goals as a couple is extremely important for staying in discovery mode. Pasha and I always do this every year. We set goals and intentions on our own, but we also set them together. We're like, what do we want to work towards and accomplish together? Now, if you are a goal setter or high achiever already, then you likely know the science behind when you reach something that you're working towards, it releases happy chemicals, right? When you feel successful, you get a hit of dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin and things like that that feel so good in your body. If you could just think about it now for a moment, what's something that you accomplished or worked towards with someone else, with a partner or maybe a best friend or maybe a family member or your whole family? Like maybe your family gets together every year and feeds people without homes around the holidays or adopts families for holiday gift giving. That feels so good when you do something like that together. I think it's so important that as the years go on and as you're creating more consistency in your relationship, to have new goals and work towards them together, whether that's trying new hobbies out or saving to buy a home or go on a really beautiful trip together. Whatever it is, you should be working together towards something new. You don't have to be doing this 24/7, but if you're noticing, oh, you know what? We're not spending, so much time together. We're not really having the same sort of interests right now. It's a great time to have a common goal. I think that working towards something together really helps build character as a couple as well. And in The Danger of the One, I talked about having all the same hobbies not being a good thing. You can become the same person. So this is sort of the balance of that. This is the other side of that, to bring intention to what you're doing together and make sure that it's something that you both are either learning or growing in, or something that really makes you both happy, or something that you really enjoy seeing the other person happy doing, that you want to try out and just kind of be in that experience with them. It really helps build your bond in a healthy way, in a securely attached way. Along with setting these couple goals, I think it's extremely important to be setting independent goals still, and to encourage your partner to set independent goals for themselves as well. Let's dive into this a little bit deeper. So, I talked about consistency and variety before, and that's like this polarity that you can create in a relationship to have balance. Having your own independent goals and having couple goals is sort of like the same thing. You want to still remain your own person and do things that you love and light you up, regardless of whether or not your partner likes it. And what happens when you set goals independent of one another is you spend time apart. And spending time apart is the second way that I love to stay in discovery mode. Because when you are learning and growing on your own, you have an opportunity to come back to your partner and share something new. And the cool thing is, your partner also has this opportunity to come back and share something new. And so you create that mystery again that I was mentioning before in episode 18. The work of Esther Perel is something I always talk about. And she says, desire needs mystery. And when your partner is off doing their own thing, you have the opportunity to have a little mystery in your relationship. You know, you have the opportunity to experience that whole age old saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder. It's really true. You can't miss the person if they're always around. And that longing for someone, that desire is really beautiful for keeping the spice alive, especially in long-term monogamous relationships. And for those of you who are coupled up, I want you to think about the first time you really saw your partner back then in their own experience, right? With their own group of friends, like maybe holding court, telling jokes or something like that. And you weren't really a part of their life yet. How attractive was that person then? Your guy now, right? How attractive was it to see him maybe with his family for the first time when you weren't fully immersed in his life yet? I bet that those are some memories that you look back on and you're like, yeah, that was like tingly and new and spicy. Do you want to know why? Because you weren't in their life yet. And so there was so much left to be learned about. And that's what's exciting. So when you encourage your partner to take space and do their own thing, you have so much space in the relationship to create that longing, that desire, that missing each other. And they're learning something new, and you're learning something new, or you're working towards something different, which is really attractive. Two people with their own lives, like healthy versions of themselves. That's sexy, right? That's not codependent. So, this is why it's really important to have your own goals. Now, a lot of people might say, especially critics, are going to say, oh, well, absence makes the heart grow fonder. What about love the one you're with? What about your partner spending, all this time without you and they're getting to know these other people, and they might like leave you for somebody else? That is such a scarcity mindset. And I think this is such an opportunity if you're having those thoughts or feelings already of, nervousness or jealousy or feelings of not enoughness. This is an amazing indicator of what you could be working on in your life. And I went through that, Pasha used to travel a lot for work, and he worked with models at the time. And so I'm not a stranger to thinking about him doing his own thing, like, having his independent vision where he was building, his company and spending so much time without me with like beautiful women. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, at the time, I was very self aware, but it was still a challenge. But I knew that I had to look deep within me and see where I didn't feel enough, where I didn't feel adequate. And was I projecting a mistrust onto him because of what happened in my previous relationships where I was cheated on? It had nothing to do with him. And so I grew because we spent time apart. I got to look at, why am I worried that I'm going to be abandoned in this situation? Is that because of something that happened to me when I was younger? And the list goes on of how you can do the deep healing work and really work on your triggers and soften the edges. And now, he can fly all over the world. I can fly all over the world. And there's barely any jealousy there. It hasn't come up in a long time because we've had the opportunity to work on it. And because we've done that work, we didn't say, oh, this is too much and this is too uncomfortable, so let's not do it. We encourage each other to have these independent goals. And it's so balanced because we have the couple goals and we make sure that we're spending the appropriate and equal amount of time on both. And so maybe you're saying, like, this isn't rocket science. I got it. I'm supposed to have goals. We're supposed to have goals together. But these concepts are so easy and yet so hard to actually implement in your life. Most people will hear them, they'll talk about them, but they won't actually do them. And so please, like, if you're somewhere where you can take out a pen and a paper, I would write some of this stuff down because it's really valuable in a relationship. And being, almost 10 years into knowing my husband, these are two things that we practice regularly and intentionally. We just wrote our couple goals down on a canvas. It was Pasha's Christmas present. Little side note story. But I gifted Pasha this large canvas and some body paint, and we had sex on that canvas. And you know what? We should probably record an episode about it because it was amazing. And before we did that, we actually took the goals that we wrote out for this year, for 2022, and we wrote them in gold marker on the canvas and then painted on top of it. It was pretty fucking epic. Okay. Before I get all hot and bothered, let me get back to what we were talking about here. So, goal setting and spending time apart. Two of the best ways to stay in discovery mode. And I have one more for you. And this last one, I think, is probably the most important. And that is the power of your community. So, your tribe, right? Your people. And tribe is kind of a hot word right now. I, mean no bad intentions by using the word, but we all used to live in tribes. We all come from a tribe. At some point in history, we all belonged to a group of people, right? And we used to have that when we were kids. If you can think about when you were in like middle school or high school and you had your crew, right? Like your tribe, they were your everything. Like everything that you guys did was like the Super Bowl. I know that I used to walk home from school every day with my best friends from high school, and we would go to my house and we would make up dances and I would choreograph everything. And we like knew exactly what was going on in each other's lives to the T. Like, who is kissing boys, who is having sex, like, whose parents were fighting. Everything we did was like the most important thing to each other. We would throw each other massive birthday parties. And it's not that I don't have that now. I definitely do, but I'm intentional with it. And I feel like a lot of people on this planet don't have maybe what I have, or maybe what you have. If you're listening and you're like, yeah, I have that too. I have my girl squad and it's amazing. But many people don't. We are more isolated now than we ever have been in our history. We live in these single family homes and we don't know our next door neighbors. I mean, it's kind of crazy if you think about it. And what happens is we start to reserve our love. We start to reserve our love for this one person, right? And this is, back to the danger of the one. It can be very isolating to feel the need to protect this love as if it's finite, as if it's not renewable, as if it doesn't multiply, right? Love isn't any of those things. Because I give love to one person doesn't mean I have less of it to give to someone else. The only thing that you might have less of is time, because like time is a finite resource, but love is not. And I believe that we were literally put on this planet to love and to share that with more people. And so it is so healthy for your relationship to lean into your other relationships with your girlfriends, with your guy friends, with your families, with your brothers and sisters, coworkers, whoever it is. What it does is it creates more space in your relationship. And it also has you access more parts of yourself. If you think of yourself like a pie, When you're in relationship with your person, you are likely using a certain set of tools. You're using a certain set of characteristics because we love patterns. The mind loves to create patterns. So, how I show up in my relationship with my husband is different than how I show up in my relationship with my best friend or my relationship with my mom, right? So, with my relationship with Pasha, I feel very like expressed, for lack of a better word. I do. I feel like I'm using a lot of who I am when I'm with him, but it's still limited. You know, it might be like 50%. But I'll tell you what, I went salsa dancing last Saturday night with, you know, my girlfriend Lauren, her brother, his girlfriend, and one of my best guy friends. And I had a fucking blast. I was like all over that dance floor. And it doesn't mean that like I can't do that with Pasha, of course, but he doesn't like salsa dancing. He's never really going to want to go salsa dancing. And a whole like en fuego side of me came out, or fuega, I guess, because I'm a girl. But I was feeling myself and I was on fire. And I'm not going to get to do that all the time with him. You know, he'll come once in a while because he's supportive and he loves me, but he would rather be watching football probably. And I don't enjoy that so much. So if I were trying to conserve my energy or my love and I wasn't focused on, you know, building those relationships also, putting time and effort and energy into other people, I likely wouldn't have that part of myself being expressed or being like let out of its, you know, bird cage every once in a while. If you think about that for a moment, I'm sure you can find areas in your life where you've not done the thing that would have been really fun, that would have been different, that would have felt so good for your soul because you wanted to spend more time with your partner. And it's challenging. There's so many nights where I don't go out and I don't go do the thing that I know that I'll love with someone else because I want to be home with my husband, you know? But this is a note of encouragement to lean into those other relationships because you will use other parts of yourself. And it might feel like, you know, goal setting and spending time apart and tribe are blending together, but they really all support one another. But what happens is when I go for a beach walk and a coffee with a good girlfriend, I'm going to use a part of myself that shows up when I'm like just with that girlfriend. And so the byproduct of that is you are expressing yourself more fully and completely. Because the best way that we learn about ourselves is in relationship with other people. And so the more isolated you are and the fewer deep, intimate, connected relationships you have, the less you're expressing yourself, the less you are using all your tools, all your magic, all your power, and you start to become a minimized version of yourself, right? And that's not sexy. That's not healthy. And so leaning into your tribe is it's so valuable and it feels so good even if it's something that's out of practice or something that's hard to do.